emotions are coming from. So let's look at the first model here. Now we are all surrounded by various types of events. And events could be things happening in front of you. Events could be you're walking in the street and something's going on. Events are the things which you see on the world news. And for most events, there is not so much that you can do. But what we end up doing is from our minds, we give meaning to those events. So event is outside of me. But from my mind, very, very, very quickly, I give a meaning to that event. It happens so quickly, I do not even realize I am doing it. So, for example, something could happen right here in the middle of all of us. Anything, it's one event. But each person can be giving individual meaning to it. So for me, it's like, oh, that's a bad thing which happened. For somebody else, oh, that's very embarrassing. For another person, what a disaster, this thing which happened. For somebody else, it's the funniest thing they've seen all year. They can't stop laughing. Event is one, but meaning is individual. And why this is important is because the meaning that you are giving to the events is generating your emotions. Event meaning emotion, event meaning emotion. It's a very, very fast process. We do not even realize how quick it is. And that's the sequence. First, something happens, then your mind ascribes meaning to it. 3 is the emotion that is generated. Agree? Yeah? But there is an illusion that we live under. And that illusion is that we believe events create our emotions. What we think is happening is this: event creates emotions. So, for example, we say things like, what you said really upset me. She made me angry. They make me nervous. I go crazy when you talk like that. So what we're saying is the event is directly responsible for my emotion. But here's the news. This is not true. The way you speak doesn't make me angry. It's the meaning I am giving to the way you speak that makes me angry. What you did didn't make me upset. The meaning I'm giving to what you did is making me upset. If the events were responsible for your emotions, then it means you are a slave and you will all live as slaves. But as human beings, we realize there's something inside here. Let me take charge of the meaning I give to the events, and therefore I am in charge of my emotions. Let me let go of trying to control events and give more importance to the meaning I give to them. This is a challenge because we have a deep habit in trying to control events, especially controlling other people. And we live in a world of finger pointing. We see it on the news every day. We live in a culture of blame. It's their fault, it's his fault, it's her fault. So that tendency we have also absorbed just by living in the world. And that's why we need to take some time every day just to reconnect with our inner spirituality, our inner divinity, and remind ourselves of these things. Otherwise, it's easy to get swept away by the current of the culture of blame that we live in. So the question rises, well, how can you upgrade the meaning that you give to events? How can you improve the meaning you give to events so the emotions are your choice? So for this, we have to understand what meaning is made up of, the components of meaning. What is included in meaning? What is the meaning of meaning? Now, there's three main things which comprise meaning, and let's have a look at that. So one of them is something called your perspective. That's to do with the angle from which you are seeing something. So can I raise the angle of my vision in order to see events differently? So for this, let's have a look at our next model to see what is possible for us within our inner world. So let's say this is a spectrum of our perspective. Over here, your perspective is high, or let's call it open. Here, your perspective is low, or you can call it closed. Over here is the eye of your mind. The way your mind is seeing situations, circumstances, life. So let's say you have some situation in your life which you are finding challenging, and your perspective is low, so you label that as a problem. And it's causing your happiness to disappear. You're feeling heavy, feeling stressed, tense, nervous, etc. What to do? You become problem conscious. You carry the problem around in the mind. And this can affect, of course, your health, your sleep, your digestive system, etc. But what you can do is say to yourself, well, I choose not to see this as a problem. Let me raise my perspective. I choose to see this as an obstacle. Now, what is the difference between a problem and an obstacle? Yeah, yeah, that's right. When you see something as a problem, you focus on the thing or the person. When you see it as an obstacle, you focus on you. How can I get over this? How can I find a way around this? How can I find a way through this? The focus is entirely different. And you ask yourself, okay, this obstacle is challenging me to find a way over it. So you begin to look at yourself. Yes, sir. Because that's the next stage. Good point. That's well, I mean, it's the next step we're looking at, but also think of when you're at school, we have obstacle races or training, physical training, military training. People have an obstacle. You have to jump over this. You have to crawl through a small tunnel. You have to swing over a patch of water. So when you overcome obstacles, it also exercises different muscle groups in the body. So in that sense, when we are spiritually aware, when obstacles come in the form of situations, circumstances, people, it's making me spiritually more strong if I can see it as that. Let's take a couple of examples. One of the forms in which obstacles come is human beings. Now, do you have at least one difficult person in your life? Right. Now, is that person in this room? Is that person sitting next to you? Well, what to do? Yeah, this person is very good at pushing my buttons, as as though they have a PhD in irritation. Yeah? They have been brought into this world just to make my life miserable. So, what to do? How to stop someone from pushing your buttons? Any ideas? Yeah, yeah. Well, we could. What usually happens when somebody pushes our button, we look for theirs to push back. And then they push mine, I push theirs, they push mine, I push theirs, and we get into a button pushing contest, which is a slippery slope to unity. Or we could do it the British way. We could say, "Excuse me, would you mind not pushing my buttons, please? Thanks very much." But that may not last for very long. But the only solution is, as you have said, is I learn to deactivate my buttons. I learn to be more emotionally stable. I take charge of the way I choose to feel. And of course, that takes inner work. But what happens then is that next time somebody pushes the button, it doesn't work. And what happens then? Let's say you go to a lift in a tall building, you press the button, nothing happens. What would you do next? Yeah, first you may press the button 5 times. You may press all the buttons, and what is wrong with this lift? But eventually you get the message. The lift is saying, we're not going anywhere today. So then you have to come out and take the stairs. In much the same way, the more I own my emotional state, the more stable I become, the more people realize I can no longer upset this person. It doesn't work anymore. This is a non-verbal message you are giving to the other. Non-verbal, that is, you can no longer make me angry. You can no longer make me upset. Don't say it, but demonstrate it through your behavior. And this will cause the other person to change their behavior towards you. That is one of the principles of spiritual living or self-awareness. Do not demand respect, but work on raising your self-respect. If your self-respect rises, respect comes to you automatically from others without you asking for it. But if your self-respect is low, you would demand respect from others. You may get it, but it will be artificial. It won't be from the heart. Now, what does it mean to practice to be in your self-respect? In essence, is this. As you pass through any situation, you remind yourself, my peace of mind, my happiness are my personal property. I'm respecting my inner self. Even though you fail, or you may be criticized, but you choose to maintain your inner dignity. Now, let's say there is a person that you find difficult to tolerate. You find difficult to be patient with someone, and you find your happiness goes up and down because of that person. You can change your perspective. erase the phrase difficult person from that person's forehead. If we use the context that life is a school, then who are we? If life is a school, we are students. Who are the teachers? Yeah, the people you find difficult in your life. Yeah. Consider them to be teachers in disguise. Right? They don't know they're teachers. And you also may be a teacher for someone. But let's complete the metaphor. If life is a school, if we are students, and if difficult people and circumstances are teachers, what is the subject in the school of life? What are we studying here? Yeah, we can. Somebody said something? Self respect, yeah. I would term it as this. I would say the highest of all studies, the greatest of all research, is the study and research of virtue, which means in a certain situation, you need to practice more tolerance. With another person, you have to be more humble. In another situation, you have to work on your patience. With somebody else, you are in need of practicing forgiveness. Somewhere else, you have to learn to say sorry first. Virtues, values. The more I imbibe this into myself, the more I grow as a person, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And you've probably heard this phrase, don't just go through life, but grow through life. Don't just go with the flow, but grow with the flow. And don't just grow with the flow, glow with the flow. That's where it ends. That's the last one. Okay. Means use even adversity to make you stronger. That's called being spiritually smart. Learning how to see a situation so it makes me evolve. So there, when you see the person who you find difficult to tolerate, just write on the forehead of that person, my tolerance teacher. Some person you find difficult to practice patience with, my personal patience tutor. So when you're, let's say you're in a social occasion, you're having some fun, the person you find difficult to tolerate also comes in the room. Remind yourself, my tolerance teacher has just arrived. My personal patience tutor has entered the room. So change how you are seeing a situation, not only so it doesn't bother you anymore, but you actually grow through it. And introduce more growth language into your thinking. Growth language such as, how will this make me stronger? What can I learn from this? What is the lesson for me here? And one which I like very much, how can I move forward? So introducing growth language into your thinking, it saves you from sitting with a mistake or a negative emotion and getting lost in it. I accept I made a mistake. I accept it wasn't right. Okay. Having accepted it, how will this make me stronger and better? These are capabilities in our hands, but we have to actively use them. So next stage, as you mentioned, now the same thing you see as an opportunity. So that same situation now, here is an opportunity for me to practice my virtue, to deploy my spiritual weapons of love or tolerance or compassion, understanding. So you won't be afraid of the situation. You see it as a chance to put it into your practical life, put virtue into your life. And then you continue to raise the perspective even more. Next stage, same thing now you see as a Test. Now, do you like tests? Right. Do we have a conference here? Huh? Who says yes? Who says no? Okay. Yeah. Generally, when we're at school as children, we don't like tests. But test is useful so I can assess what I know and what I have to pay attention to. So, for example, you take your body for a test, which is called a health checkup. You have a blood test. Why? In order to know what is my condition, and if something is not right, I can take the appropriate measures. You take your car for a test to the garage. They check the wheels, the wipers, the brakes to see if everything is okay or not. So a test is there for me to be able to see myself. And a person who's spiritually aware knows that sometimes life provides tests for you. I may think I'm a very generous, loving, kind person. How can I know unless some situation tests me? I may think I have a lot of courage. How to know until something happens in my life to test my courage? So that same situation which I was seeing as a problem, now I see as a chance for some self-assessment, to know my own self. So I won't run away from it, won't reject it. Okay, this is just a test for me. Changing something into being useful for myself. And then there is the final stage. What is the final stage? What does the problem eventually turn into? Yeah, all good words, good words. Yeah, you could use any of these words. But the word which I like to use changes into a gift. So when you receive a gift, your life should improve. So your life should become easier when you receive some kind of gift. And there are some remarkable people who've been through life-threatening illnesses or major accidents. They've come out the other side and they say, it was like, yes, for a year I passed through some challenges, but it opened my eyes. I see life differently now, or I value people more, or I notice the flowers and the birds and the weather. So those are extreme examples. But the same principle can apply to us. No matter what I'm passing through, let me keep my focus on what is the gift for me here. Keep my courage, keep my positivity, and do not allow my happiness to be dampened by the situation I'm passing through. My vision, my thoughts, my perspective, that's what's in my own hands. So that's one aspect of upgrading the meaning you are giving to the event, and therefore you upgrade how you feel about it. We'll just touch on one more aspect of meaning, and that is context. The context within which you see something gives meaning to it. And if you change the context, you change the meaning of it. So the question arises, in which context do I see life? What is a healthy context for life? Any suggestions? What does life mean to you? So, for example, some people say, well, life for me is a competition. Some say life is a battle. I'm battling at home, battling in the traffic, battling at work. Life is a war. Some people say that. Journey. Life is a journey. Nice one. Yeah. Hmm? Sorry, say again. Okay. Life is for you for the greatest good. Okay. Let's explore this more. Two contexts I would suggest, which we study here. One we looked at already. You can see life as a school, and therefore there is a learning potential at every moment. There is a growth potential at every moment. Another useful one is to see the whole of life as a grand theater performance in which every single individual human being, every soul is playing their own unique and individual part. Now, if life is a theater performance and everybody plays their part, then we are both performers, but also we are also audience for each other. And we have to know when to act and when to observe. This is part of the art of living, is to know when I should say or do something, when I just have to be an observer. Now, as I'm presuming everybody has taken part in some kind of theater performance, maybe at school, right? The little one, maybe. and she has. Really? And when was that? And are you going to do it again? Okay. But as you would know, in any kind of skit or drama or theater performance, there are different roles to be played. And you have to play your role as best as you can. But what you cannot do is suddenly wear the director's cap and start telling, you should do like this, you should be like this, you shouldn't do that. It's not your job. You are the director of your performance, not of other people's performance. So when we mentally try to become the director of somebody else's life, we create stress for ourselves. We bring tension into our lives. That's where we have to understand there is a line. My responsibility towards someone has a limit. But mentally, when you try to control someone, you are opening a door for stress. And it's a very subtle thing to check within the self, the tendency to control others. That's one of the reasons there is tension in people's relationships. So one thing we learn here is you cannot control situations, circumstances, people. What you can control is your response to circumstances, situations, and people. So let me empower my response rather than trying to control your facial expression, your tone of voice, how you speak, so on and so forth. Turn the focus of control from the outside towards the inside. And therefore, learning how to be an observer of the performances of other actors in the play of life. If I can really be an observer, then I will not absorb any negative energy from others. Someone's stress, someone's aggression, someone's disrespect. The sign that I am not doing that is I can offer the best of me towards life and towards the other. These are relationship skills which takes time to build up, but they're extremely useful. The third one I won't go into. We've looked at perspective, context. I'll just mention the third one, and I'll invite you to explore in your own time. And that is our perception. We all carry a perception filter in front of us through which we see things. And when you clean that perception filter, you begin to see the reality of a situation or a person. Let's move on to the next thing. Everyone? Just now, okay? All right. Everything okay so far? Hoping this is useful for you and you can take away and apply in your life. So let's look at the next factor. This is tougher. This is a test for me. All right. So the next thing we need in order to maintain our happiness is we need to check our level of inner strength. How much inner strength do I have in order to maintain that balance in my inner emotional state? So here's a little formula. Your inner strength is connected to something, and that is your self-care divided by your overthinking. Now, anybody good at mathematics here? How can you increase your inner strength? Right? You can do two things. You can improve your self-care and also reduce your overthinking. Right? So both things. So with overthinking, we can also add over speaking. It's easier to control our words than our thoughts. So one thing you may like to practice is valuing your verbal energy. When we overspeak, we are also tiring the brain. So the question is, can I make my speaking more economical and more essential? So instead of speaking 20 words to say something to someone, can I say the same thing in 10 or 15 words? And therefore save the energy of 5 or 10 words. And if I can be more essential, the energy I save will accumulate in my mind as what we call as the power of silence. That power of silence will manifest in other ways in your life. For example, you'll have more willpower, which you lacked before. You'll have the strength to forgive, which you could not do before. You'll be able to tolerate a person whom you always found difficult. Where is this extra power coming from? It's the result of saving your energy by more economical and essential speaking. Now, if you go to a shop and you see something you'd like to buy, for example, a jacket or a hat or something, what would you do before you buy it? You could try it on and something maybe even before. I mean, I looked at the price. I'm not sure about you, but I look at the price first. In other words, I'm saying, am I prepared to let go of this much money to have this thing? Is it worth it? Just as we value our dinars, I should value my word energy just as much. Spending, consider it to be an expenditure of your energy. Just like we use the word expenditure for money, I'm spending it. So too, I'm spending my verbal energy. And then upgrade that to the level of thoughts, which is what we as meditators pay more attention to. Can I be more essential and economical with my thought energy? And that's when you really begin to make major improvements in yourself when you're working on the thought level. And for that, we need daily practice and daily study. Now, we use this idea of spiritual punctuation. And that is when you notice yourself overthinking, put a full stop. Okay, mind, enough. Stop now. Not a comma, which is a pause and then you carry on thinking more useless things, or an exclamation mark or a question mark. Full stop. Training the mind to change the direction of the thinking. Now, I guess all of you do some kind of meditation already, right? Everybody does some kind of meditation in their life. And how many of you here are meditators? Okay, not so many hands this time. How many are wondering what's the difference between doing meditation and being a meditator? Many people do meditation as a way to de-stress, to calm down, to relax, to handle the challenges of life. And for a person, that may be enough. But to be a meditator means it's a lifestyle. That means as you pass through day-to-day life, one part of you is naturally vigilant and checking to see how am I spending my thought energy. Take the example of an athlete who wishes to, win the gold medal in the races. So for her or for him, eating healthy is a lifestyle. There's a natural awareness, what I eat, when I eat, how much I eat. Because for an athlete, to maintain optimum weight is essential. So you may offer an athlete the most favorite food. They say, no, sorry, it's not my time. I do not eat at this time. Natural awareness. In much the same way, a meditator is like a mental athlete. You go to work, you're in the traffic, you go shopping, you're with family, you do all that. But one part of you is aware, am I spending my thought energy wisely? And when you catch yourself overthinking, you stop that, you try to change it. When you see you're recycling some useless thoughts over and over again, mind, stop. Let's go in a positive direction. Yeah. As a result, you find yourself saving thought power. So reducing the overthinking is going to increase your inner strength. Secondly, self-care. Well, we've mentioned various aspects of self-care already, which include changing the meaning towards situations. But the second aspect is to do with understanding my inner sense of identity. And identity, in my view, is the most important factor in human life. As it is said, you don't see the world as it is. You see the world according to who you are. According to who you think you are is how you see the world. And so the question is, and I know you know the answer, who are you? There's the right answer. The question is that when we're out there in the street, in the traffic, in the shopping malls, at that time, am I aware I am a spiritual being, a spiritual energy? Or do I default to, well, I am son or daughter of so-and-so, mother or father of so-and-so, from such and such country, this company, etc., etc. So in the daily practical life, I have to live in the awareness of my true spiritual identity. That's the challenge, to bring it into the life, and that's where it makes all the difference. Why? Because according to your sense of identity will be your emotional condition. Now, there are many techniques to try to handle and deal with negative emotions. They're very useful. But here we go one layer below the emotion layer and we come to the identity layer. Because, as we mentioned, your sense of identity is influencing your emotional condition. So let's have a look at another model here to help us to understand the relationship between identity and emotions. So let's say this represents your awareness. And as we pass through life, we place various pockets of identity. You can also call them as ego masks into our awareness. And let's represent these as this letter, this small letter I. So, for example, I am from such and such a country. It's an identity label. I even from this company or that company, the profession label. I was educated in such and such a place. I am from this family or that family. I have achieved this and this. I am good at so and so. All of these are pockets of identity which are floating around in our awareness. We can also call them as ego masks. Some are smaller and some are larger. The size of that particular ego mask depends on how much I feed it. So, for example, ask 5 different people, who are you? And they can give 5 very different answers. One person says, who am I? Well, I'm a person of this country. I'm a Kuwaiti. Another one has written, who am I? I'm a mother. That's who I am first. Another one has written their religion. Another one their profession. Another one their political affiliation, etc., etc. So the one that you think of more is the one which becomes the bigger one for you. And what also happens as we pass through life, you will experience some kind of threat or attack on your ego masks. So, for example, let's say you have some talent, but you become a bit arrogant about that talent and you make it into an ego mask. Let's see what happens. Anybody here a good cook? Any good cooks here? 1, 2, 3, 4. A lot of good cooks. It's 1 or 2 not sure. All right. So let's say you're a good cook, but let's say you become a bit arrogant about it and you make it into an ego mask. And then one day we all come to your house for a meal and you have spent hours cooking. And we sit down at the table, we take the first bite of food that you have been cooking, and we make a face, that's horrible. Oh, how could you make that? That's terrible. And we even spit it out a bit. Now, how might you feel if this happens? Yeah, you may feel offended, you may feel ashamed, or you may say, there is the door, you can leave now. Right? In other words, that comment of ours, this is horrible or that's terrible, you may experience that as a kind of attack or threat on that particular ego mask. And the result of that is an emotional reaction. So all emotional reactions are a result of a perceived attack on one of my ego masks. The bigger the ego mask is, the bigger the emotional reaction. As long as these ego masks exist, there's always going to be emotional reaction, sometimes expressed, sometimes suppressed, but it's still there. And therefore, my happiness will go up and down, I'll be at the mercy of these ego masks. If I really wish to be free from a life of reaction, I have to learn how to deal with these ego masks. Now, how should you fight the ego? Yeah, don't take it personally. Anything else? Yes, yes. Oh, getting interesting now. Eh? Well, the thing is, don't fight the ego. Ego is darkness. How do you chase away the darkness? Minimize. Yeah, well, if the room is dark, you switch on the light, right? So, what is the light? So, self aware, yeah. What we're learning here is that beneath and behind all of these ego masks is the true self. The real I is hidden underneath all of these ego masks. And within this spiritual I, this eternal I, this true I, there is already peace. There is already love. There is joy. There is strength, etc., etc. There is wisdom. In fact, why did we develop all these ego masks? Because we were looking for security, looking to feel safe. And the message here is start living as the real I, not as the ego eyes. The more you live in the awareness of the real I, the soul, the self, the Ru, the Atma, the more your need for security will come from inside you rather than trying to grab it from outside. The more secure you feel internally, what will happen is that these ego masks will slowly begin to dissolve. In other words, you no longer need those ego masks to define your importance, your self-worth, your self-value. You may still have the qualifications, the job, whatever it is, but it won't define you as an individual. You don't need that anymore to measure your self-value. And furthermore, these other ego masks begin to dissolve. Now, a word of caution here. The smaller ones are easier to deal with. The big ones, they will wrestle with you. They will fight you. Takes time to deal with those. But yet, the more we continue to develop internal security, the more these ego masks are dissolving. The sign that the ego masks are dissolving is you're becoming more emotionally stable. So, for example, before you did something, nobody said thank you. You feel, I don't feel appreciated in here and here. I quit. I'm not doing this again. But now, whether people say thank you, don't say thank you, it's okay. You're totally okay with it. You don't need that to make you feel important. So you're noticing in your practical life, your happiness is in your hands rather than the result of people's comments or behaviors. Eventually, you may reach this point here where all the ego masks disappear. Now, doesn't that look nice? That is freedom. Freedom from reactions, freedom from getting upset, freedom from the game of comparing and competing with others, freedom from the inferiority and superiority complexes. And further good news, all this which is inside you begins to come out and fill your awareness. So you become a peaceful person. You become a loveful person. You become a joyful person. Not because of something or someone, but it's because that's who and what you are. The dynamic of your relationships begins to change. And generally, people have this dynamic in life, which is the outside in model. I try to gain attention, respect, praise, appreciation from others to make me feel good inside. But as we become self aware, we use the term soul conscious, you begin to live the inside out model. That's where what you're releasing from inside you, the love, the peace, the joy, you experience it and you radiate it out to others. Let's take the example of this quality of love, which is one of the main needs of the human being. This can have its emotional form or it can have a spiritual form. It can be an emotion or it can be a feeling. Emotional it's a surface experience. So if you are nice to me, if you show attention to me, I may have loving emotions towards you. But tomorrow you choose not to do that, I get a bit upset. Or you show that to somebody else and say, what's going on here? But as a feeling, it's rather like the sun. Now the sun shines its heat and light. It's sharing what it is. Let's say one particular day we close the curtains and we block the sun. Does it bother the sun? Does the sun get upset? Does the sun say, yesterday you people blocked me out, today I'm not shining on you? No, the sun is independent of our behaviors. The same way, the more spiritually empowered I become, my capacity to love or to be happy or to be peaceful, it's coming from who and what I am and is independent of the behavior of others. Just like a flower, it radiates, it shares its fragrance. And this is where our relationships change from coming from a place of need to coming from a place of abundance and sharing. Further good news is all of this then will come out of you. You radiate this out to your family, your work colleagues, your friends, and even your enemies, if you have some. Your enemies will become your friends. And so there you always have something to share with whoever you may be with. So such a person is extremely useful to everyone because your emotional neediness is less, your natural capacity to share is increasing. And I think that's what the world needs more of, is radiators of peace, of love, of happiness, of positive energy, even without saying anything. As somebody was saying today, your presence will become a present for other people. Now we've covered 2 of the 5 components of happiness. Can you stay till 10 p.m.? Now we're going to be wrapping up here. Maybe I just mention what the others are, and you may like to think about them in your own time. What did we look at? We looked at emotions, and we looked at inner strength. Other things to consider are purpose, having a clear sense of purpose in your life. I know for me, in my late teens, early 20s, I had a period of I would call it disenchantment. We didn't quite know, what to do, which direction to go in, how to live. So because of that, I felt like my happiness was low. I needed to work out how I was going to live. What's the purpose of my life? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Human beings require a sense of purpose. For most animals, not all, for most animals, food and shelter is sufficient. But for the human soul, more is needed. For example, if I offer you or for you to stay on a wonderful paradise island somewhere with wonderful weather all year round, organic vegetable garden, unlimited Wi-Fi, a great house to live in, and I say, just stay here. Nope, nothing to pay. Just stay here for the rest of your life. Would you take my offer? Hell yeah. Where do I sign? Well, I would say that initially it sounds attractive, but after a while you may think, well, what's the point of all this? You know, because although physically you may be healthy and relaxed and all that, but a human soul needs a sense of purpose. A human being needs to feel useful in some way. Human beings need to be able to contribute. Contribution is an important part of happiness. To feel I have something to offer to people or to nature or to the animals. That's where your self-esteem also comes in. So that's something to explore. What is my sense of purpose in life? Another thing to think about is the inside story of desires. That's another whole subject to go into. Now, generally, people think, when I get what I want, I will be happy. So all the attention goes on the getting. Let me work harder to get what I want. But hang on, what about the wanting part? What's all this wanting about? What's this wanting business? Why do I want all these things? What's behind the wanting? And so there we would explore the territory of wants and needs. When my needs are lacking, I create lots of wants. But when I work on the needs, which are what we looked at already, self-respect, contentment, dignity, peace, love, when I work on those needs and fulfill them, the wants automatically reduce. And therefore, my happiness comes in my own hands. So I'm going to be wrapping up there. And well, you have to talk to the boss here, wherever the boss is. Is she here? The boss is inside. Okay. um, okay. So I think we maybe end with a little meditation. Yeah. All right. So I think probably most of you have been here. Anyone here first time, by the way? Anyone? No. So you all know what to do. Oh, first time. All right. So what we do, I'll speak out a simple guiding commentary, and you can have your back straight, and if it's comfortable for you, your feet on the floor. And we play some soft music. We change the lights just to help concentration. And if you're comfortable, you can have your eyes open and try and use that point as a point of focus. If you find it difficult, you may close your eyes, but you have to pay attention not to fall asleep. So it's a short commentary. So I spend a few moments to relax body, relax mind. There is a world outside of me, but there is also a world inside me. The world outside is the world of sound, of movement, of action. It is the world of doing. cannot control the world outside, but the world inside me is in my own hands. My thoughts create my feelings. I can choose the thoughts I wish to create. And so I ask myself, who am I? Behind all the roles I play every day, who am I? Behind the labels I carry, who am I? Behind the masks I wear, who am I? I am not what I do. I am not what I have. And even when I look in the mirror, I see the reflection of my face, my body. But there is more to me than simply this. And so I bring my attention up to my face. I bring my attention to the center of my forehead. And here I picture a beautiful star of peaceful light, a wonderful living star of peace at the center of my forehead. And from this star, waves of peaceful and healing energy radiate throughout my body. This beautiful living star of peace in the center of my forehead. This is me. This is I, the eternal self. This is I, the inner being. This is I, the soul. I, the soul, I am light. the soul. I am eternal. I, the soul, I am peaceful. I, the soul, I am strong. I, the soul, I am stable. And I, the soul, I am free. My peace, my happiness has always been inside me. I choose to emerge this peace, this happiness, and live with it. Let me be with these thoughts and feelings for a few moments. And now, gently, I return to the awareness of this room here. Thank you.